So is one way more of a challenge than the other, or are they just different?
They're just different.
Just different.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun to try and recreate what someone else has
to be
illustrated.
accurate or transpose it from that media to your media.
Right, but then sometimes it's fun to just come up with a totally new concept. So.
Do budget restraints influence your design process at all, or does that ever come into question?
Absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah.
How does that work usually? Is it never enough, or?
Well, no. Sometimes, yeah, definitely we have a good budget. Sometimes, you know, certain shows could use more, but it does help in, like, with shows like It's a Wonderful Life that we've done a couple of times, and then Miracle on 34th Street this year is from basically the same time period, so you can use things you have in stock, and then we have costume rental we can pull from that, and so it varies.
How far from like opening night does your process start on a show?
Well, it can be 2 weeks or it can be 5 weeks.
Okay.
So 2 is the short of it, and that was Amazing Grace, and then 5 weeks was Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. So.
Okay. Now we also took some footage of, I believe, some set construction and things like that, and I think if we could cue those up, maybe we could take a look at that and comment. And this is the building itself, which I will ask you about in a moment here, or maybe I should ask you right now. This was an incredible gift to the theater. How has it influenced the work, made it better, given you inspiration, or how is it different than if you built a new building?
Well, it's just something you're never going to find anywhere, not just in Omaha, but anywhere in the country. So it's very unique. It's a marvelous place for a child to walk in and have his or her first experience with theater. It's such a fantasy-saturated ambiance that I'll have people come in from around the country, and I'll say, now, you're not going to believe this, what this place looks like, and I'll say, you know, no matter how much I build it up, your expectations, you know, you're not going to believe it. And they always walk in and say, well, I thought it was going to be great. I didn't know it was going to be this great. So it's wonderful.
Where is your scenic studio that you build your sets located? Is that in the theater or adjacent, or?
Well, it used to be down by the river, but now the arena moved us out. So we have a really great space that's just a couple of blocks away from the theater. It's just right up the street from the Children's Museum there on St. Mary's. So it's only a couple blocks away.
What set are they working here?
That's Amazing Grace that they're getting ready on our main stage. And these are...
And how many children are usually in a production that from the community? Is there...
Well, if we do 5 or 6 shows a year, probably only 2 of them will have children in them. A lot of our shows eventually will tour around the country, and in those cases we couldn't have children go out because they would be out for 5 months maybe. Right. So we try to pick about 2 shows a year where a lot of kids can be in, and then we generally try to have a large group of kids. We frequently double or even triple cast the roles just to give 2 or 3 times the number of kids an opportunity than we would if we only had, you know, one child do the role for the whole run. So it could be 20 to 60 kids.
Wow, that's a lot of kids to handle. What's the future hold for the theater? And I mentioned some of the associations, Mark Medoff, who wrote Children of a Lesser God, and things like that. What are some things in the future, or some other things maybe people aren't aware of?
Well, we are the primary touring company of theater-paying audiences in the country. We tour at the largest scale right now, and we go everywhere in the country. And we started with 1 touring company. This year we have 2 touring companies, and next year we're going to have 3 touring companies. Wow. So our tour now actually brings in a lot more money. So I mean, in that regard, it's a lot bigger than what we even do on our main stage. And we are doing a lot more education work in the schools than we ever have in the past. And Everett Quinton, who we saw some footage, I think, of Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, he directed that show. And we got a big grant to have him come in and direct 4 plays with us. and he has won several Obie Awards in New York and Drama Critic Awards, and he's coming back to do one more play, so that's a very prestigious kind of thing. We just did a show this fall that he directed and Joe Sutton wrote called Hank and Gerlo, and Joe Sutton was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, so that is
For that neat. Play? Or?
Yeah, well, no, that was for a play that he did at Seattle Rep, which is not for children. And just this week, Beverly Cleary, who wrote all the Ramona books, and said that she wants to work with us on Mouse and the Motorcycle. So that's very exciting, too, because she's a big name in children's
Would
literature.
any of the productions you mount ever go on to a bigger venue like a New York or Broadway?
Well, that's interesting, because in most of theater, there is like a big Broadway production or some really significant regional theater production that gets published and gets a lot of notoriety, and then it all trickles down, so that eventually you'll see it in colleges and you'll see it at the Playhouse. And that's just the way it always has been. There's always this Broadway or London or someplace where it always starts, and there is no Broadway for children's theater. There is no situation like that. So what we have are really big titles from books. That seems to be the situation, and so we kind of start with these big titles and try to do interesting, imaginative, creative adaptations of these titles, and then they might tour, but we don't really have a place that it goes to. Minneapolis is the largest children's theater in the world, and they have a budget of $10 million. But we're not going to go to Minneapolis.
Right.
They're the top of the mountain, so there's no way or anything like that.
What about future plans for expansion or things like that?
Well, we've already filled up the rows, so one thing that had a big impact on us was that literally, as we were moving in that fall, the ballet had gone through all kinds of was going through all kinds of turmoil, and eventually it disappeared. And the Omaha Ballet used to do 3 ballets and have an education program, and the Nutcracker. We do 2 ballets, an education program, in the Nutcracker. So we now do 80% of what Ballet Omaha used to do, and that's had a big impact on how much space we have, where we can do things, and it's very wonderful because there's a lot of intermingling, and Julia of the Wolves was a combination of dancers and actors, and we're opening a show Saturday in our smaller theater that has primarily dancers but a few actors in it. So, but that has been something we didn't anticipate when we moved in the building, and it uses up all of our space. We now have we work in the former Ballet Omaha dance studios that are right up the street, so it takes a lot of space. But I think we're just touring more is a big thing that has a lot of our energy involved in it.
Sherry, how many people work in the costume shop, and what are the stages you go through from beginning to end?
Well, there's myself and the shop foreman, and then I have 2 part-time stitchers, and then the ballet costume designer, which she normally works pretty separate from us because of her schedule. Both of our projects are always too big to share the space, and then we have a costume rental manager. So I start out by reading the script and meeting with James or whoever is directing, researching, and then doing renderings, and from there doing the patterning and shopping and cutting, and then we construct and do fittings with the actors, and then finishing touches, and then that's Tech Week.
That's Tech Week.
So.
Okay.